Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins, where we're going to talk a little bit tonight. Still have COVID-19 in the news, but of course we're going to break a little bit from that at the beginning with some natural disasters that are taking place throughout many places in the world. Of course, some flooding, some earthquakes, radioactive wastewater. Of course, Japan was kind of battling as to what to do with the excess wastewater that is building up because of the damaged reactors there at the Fukushima nuclear plant there. But the concern is, how is it going to affect the sea life and affect the fisheries? Because as we know, a lot of people depend on their livelihood for the fisheries there. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about not only the U.S. economy, but COVID-19 cases rising throughout the United States, but particularly in one area of Texas. But first, let's look at flooding in Vietnam, which has caused thousands of homes to be destroyed due to heavy rains in that particular area. Well, heavy rains and mudslides has swept an entire community or several communities away in central Vietnam. Millions of people have been affected, and in certain provinces, the floods are inescapable, and all that many can do is wait it out for rescue on the roofs of what's left of their devastated homes. Well, one victim, Duong Kinh Tho, said, "I haven't eaten for days, and the flood water is now at the level of my roof, and we have no help, no food, nothing."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, more than 100,000 Vietnamese have lost their lives due to the flooding, about a third of them soldiers. At a local hospital, workers wait outside for help because the inside is flooded. Now, the government said that things might get worse as Tropical Storm Soldal approaches. Along with houses, many have lost their sources of income, as about 700,000 heads of livestock have been swept away. Now, the scenario is much the same in neighboring Cambodia, and flooding is also occurring in the Philippines. Now, in Vietnam, people are preparing for the worst, as these floods have been described as the worst in decades.
Yeah, and that's pretty scary, and the fact that they already are dealing with all the flooding, the deaths taking place. Yet another tropical storm on the back end of this could cause even more problems. Well, in Turkey and Greece, there have been a lot of destruction taking place as a result of the earthquake that was in the Aegean Sea. It was a magnitude 7 earthquake, which caused a building to collapse in the city of Izmir. Rescue workers are searching for survivors and the dead. Currently, there is no number on those deceased as a result of the earthquake. Well, take a look at this video for an on-the-ground view of the devastation caused.
Yıkıldı. An itibariyle İzmir Borno Özkanlar'da karşı apartmanımız yıkıldı. Apartman gitti. Allah! Apartman gitti ya. Çıkın ya, çıkın. Eyvah, bina tamamen çöktü. Eyvah. Eyvah. Tamamen çöktü bina. yardımcıları olsun. İzmir bayraklı Bornova. Allah yardımcıları olsun.
Well, even though some of the buildings are partially standing, it looks like other places complete devastation. And now, as they mentioned, they have the task of trying to find any survivors that might still be buried in there somewhere, and hopefully find them alive.
Right, pretty sad.
Well, moving back to the Americas now, more authorities have been called in to help in the search for more bodies, as at least 59 bodies have been discovered in a mass grave in central Mexican city of Guanajuato. Many of the bodies discovered were women and teenagers. Now, Hector Diaz, the search commissioner, said, "It's a very wide area. We must continue the search because we think there may be more remains buried there." One mother who waits for information feels her son could be a victim of the drug cartels in the battles for cocaine and other narcotics.
Wow, so far, more than 3,000 unmarked graves have been found since Mexico's military was deployed to fight the powerful drug cartels in 2006. Well, many families have pleaded for years for help to find their missing relatives. Turf wars between rivals have led to more murders, and an estimated 40,000 Mexicans have been reported missing, and now public frustration is growing.
Imagine. Well, one resident of the city said that this is sad because our city was quiet. Now we can't go out with our families now because of the insecurity. Now, since the discovery, all families can do is wait for answers as to who's buried, as more bodies are expected to be discovered.
Well, Pope Francis has made a stunning shift from his predecessors on the Catholic Church's verbal stance on same-sex marriage. In a documentary called Francesco, Pope Francis said, "Homosexual people have the right to be in a family. They are children of God. What we have to create is a civil union law," he said, end quote. Well, it's a different stance from the past, as a 2003 document from the Catholic Church opposed gay marriage, stating in the document they, referring to the gay marriages, obscure certain basic moral values and cause a devaluation of the institution of marriage.
Well, Anthony Monfiguerodo, a Monsignor and CBS News consultant, said that this is not a change in doctrine, but a major shift in attitude. Now, he continued, Pope Francis has always maintained that marriage is between a man and a woman, but civil laws, he said, have changed. And unless the church accepts these civil laws, it means we have been promoting discrimination if we do not accept what has gone on the civil level. Now, LGBTQ advocates see this as an opening and as an important message from a pope who's known for surprises.
I guess we'll see how that goes, considering that Catholic Church has over 1 billion followers throughout the world, and they look to the Catholic Church and, of course, the Pope as the spokesman, as the kind of moral authority on what's right and what's wrong. Well, a lot of people agree with it, a lot of people don't. Well, Tokyo is planning to press ahead with their plans regarding the release of radioactive wastewater from the damaged Fukushima power plant. The Japanese government said there's not much time left on how to process the radioactive water, emphasizing that the storage for the wastewater will be full by August 2022. Well, concerns have increased as other higher levels of other materials have been found in the water as well. More conflicts have arisen as Japan has not consulted with its neighboring countries, including South Korea.
Well, for now, on more on this, the Fukushima wastewater that is leaking into the waters there, and how it's affecting a certain industry, mainly the fishing industry, where many people get their livelihood from. We're going to turn to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who has these details on and how it could possibly affect the people in that area. Larry?
According to all reliable accounts, the world's next major crisis is brewing and soon to emerge from the Earth's water supply, One of the biggest factors working to produce that looming calamity is the inappropriate disposal of wastewater. A prime case in point is Japan's impending proposal to release over 1 million tons of toxic wastewater from its Fukushima power plant into the sea. Japanese officials say the water has been treated to remove its most hazardous elements, and with the deadline of 2020 for its ability to continue to house the waste, Japanese officials say a decision must be made concerning the matter quickly. The country faces great opposition from neighboring nations such as China and South Korea, however, where in the latter case, there is great concern that the proposed dumping will completely decimate the sea's fish population and at the same time ruin the fisheries which derive their living from the waters. The ripple effect of the virus is making it increasingly more difficult for Americans to earn a decent living, with millions of U.S. citizens now reported to be out of work. Food banks are experiencing sharp increases in those seeking assistance, and many citizens are beginning to view the effects of the virus as a government failure. All efforts to stop the virus have failed, with cases increasing in 45 states in the U.S. The plague seems to be growing in strength as it picks up speed. The nation's hospitals have long since buckled under the caseloads of those infected and suffering. Even if they were able to acquire more beds, doctors say it would be nowhere near as easy to acquire new or additional medical staff. Those same doctors communicate a great feeling of insult at the notion that the plague is fake, stating that they have not been away from their families and children for months on end because of a hoax. One of America's go-to professionals on the virus, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says that any semblance of normalcy for Americans is still many months off, and he is advising citizens not to mark the coming holidays with the usual get-togethers, which are now being identified as a vehicle for spreading the infection. The official number of those infected within the U.S. is now reported to be 8.8 million and quickly climbing, with over 200,000 having succumbed to complications stemming from the virus due to co-infections and immunocompromisation. The U.S. is said to be averaging over 800 such deaths per day, causing further stress and strain on frustrated and overwhelmed hospitals across the nation, some of which are seeing as much as a 50% spike in cases. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Boy, just trouble all over the world. You know, it seems pretty distressing to many, but of course we see these COVID-19 cases continuing to rise in many countries. Not really, they're making plans to do things, but you know, nothing's really helping in this situation.
And not just rising slowly, rising very quickly right now.
Quickly. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Well, with the U.S. on the verge of passing the 9 million mark for COVID cases, one county in Texas is experiencing the extreme burden of the virus. El Paso is setting up mobile medical units outside their hospitals now to deal with the increase in number of coronavirus cases. Currently, the county has 934 hospitalized patients, which amounts to more than 33 states combined. Wow.
Well, additional doctors and nurses are being sent to El Paso to assist. It isn't enough to keep up with the need for them. Now, Dr. Jose Burgos of the University Medical Center of El Paso told CBS Evening News, he said, "It is frustrating. We have never seen a situation like this before."
Yeah. Along with El Paso, we heard Larry talk about Utah hospitals. The fear there is they are heading for problems like Wisconsin, where hospitals are saying they will run out of ICU beds in 2 weeks if the surge continues. Dr. Fauci has said to NBC, quote, CNBC, quote, "The numbers are stunning. The numbers are stunning. We're going to have many more hospitalizations, and that will inevitably lead to more deaths," end quote.
Well, even though the situation is very serious here in the United States, it is even worse in Europe. Now, last week, the continent accounted for almost half of all coronavirus cases across the globe. Now, the U.S. could reach that same status in a matter of 3 weeks if the virus doesn't slow down. Now, in places like Germany and France, drastic measures are being implemented in hopes of stopping the rapid spread.
The German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced her government must take burdensome measures to slow the spread of COVID, closing restaurants, bars, and movie theaters, all in an effort to fight back at an invisible enemy. Even though Germany has been strict in requiring masks and encouraging the practice of proper hygiene, as well as conducting widespread testing. Infection rates have been increasing at alarming rates.
Well, with over half of all intensive care beds in France already full, President Emmanuel Macron has instituted a second lockdown in his country, hoping to stop the transmission of the virus. Now, until at least the 1st of December, the French people are confined to their homes unless they have a great reason to go out. Now, unlike the last lockdown, schools will remain open as well as factories, but businesses considered the non-essential will be closed.
As if the pandemic weren't enough of a crisis, France is also facing attacks of another kind. On Friday, the Notre Dame Basilica in Nice turned from a house of worship to a house of horror. While some were praying, a man wielding a knife made his attack, killing 3 people and injuring others. According to police, one of the victims was decapitated, and another of the victims was the warden of the church.
Well, the mayor of Nice, Christian Estrosi, told reporters, "We are hurt to once again see that our city is taken like this. I want to tell the families of the victims of this barbaric attack that everyone in this community," he said, "is by your side. I want to say that we can no longer, with the laws of peace in our community, wipe out Islamofascism."
Well, the attack comes just 2 weeks after the murder of school teacher Samuel Paty in a suburb of Paris. Paty was decapitated by Muslim extremists in retaliation for showing caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad to his students. Mr. Paty was trying to illustrate to them a lesson on freedom of speech and secularism. With this most recent attack at Notre Dame, France's state of emergency is raised to its highest level.
Well, we end our news with North Korea. In our last broadcast, we mentioned North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, had announced at a military parade that his country had not seen one case of COVID as of yet. Now, he spoke to his people and to the world saying, "Let me take this opportunity to console the people all over the world who battle the disease caused by a malicious virus. I sincerely hope people can keep their health, happiness, and smiles. Above all, I feel very grateful," he said, "for our people being healthy and sound."
That's very optimistic. President Kim's claim to be COVID-free is a big one, and many doubt it is true. The government is taking some precautions, however, as the annual yellow dust storms start coming from China. They have asked their citizens to stay indoors as much as possible, thinking the yellow dust could bring with it coronavirus.
However, many came out as the country celebrated its 75th anniversary of the Workers' Party, with events during the day where some attendees were seen wearing masks on state-run television. Now, at an extraordinary midnight military parade, however, where spectators and participants alike were crowded together in Kim Il-sung Square, no mask could be seen there.
Well, the Pyongyang parade, which displayed precisely drilled marching and fireworks, was led by the country's most fierce weapon. Some analysts are saying it could be the world's largest intercontinental ballistic missile ever. Now, while these parades are actually quite common and highly choreographed, right down to the tears, there is a message behind all the fanfare. North Korea, known as the most totalitarian of countries, armed and isolated from the rest of the world, is in control and united with its people.
And interestingly, Katan, with everything going on with the coronavirus, different countries, and many of them experiencing a huge surge right now in new cases.
Right.
We still have countries like North Korea where they're claiming that they don't have any cases, but that's probably going to change here pretty soon if that is the case. But they're still pushing their efforts forward in their military advancements, displaying that intercontinental ballistic missile, being described as one of the world's largest. You know, that has some people concerned because North Korea has always isolated themselves from the rest of the world, and Kim Jong-un has made threats to countries, specifically the United States, that he's not afraid to use these type of weapons.
Right, and just that kind of brought to my attention, remembrance that is, one of the military leaders of the United States Armed Forces said regarding at the very beginning, the onset of this coronavirus, that despite the coronavirus spreading rapidly throughout the United States and the world, the United States military is poised and ready to handle anything that arises, and we're ready to do that very quickly should the need be.
Right, so all the countries still making their military advancements, not preparing for peace, but
Right.
definitely preparing for war.
More war.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about these stories, you can contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, yisraelhawkins.com, and yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to ypnnews.com. For all calls outside of the United States, please call the number on your screen. And again, don't forget the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael programs, the best resource to aid you in study and understanding of the Holy Scriptures. You can find those by going to yisraelsays.com and askyisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another message from Yisrael Hawkins explaining to you how you can have the mark of Yahweh instead of the mark of the beast. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.